This is the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Invincible Season 3, Episode 6. All I can say is I'm sorry.
You're not listening! This isn't about me! This is about the thousands of people murdered and the countless other lives destroyed! Why is above the law? Why does never pay for his crimes? Where is it when people are trying to put their world back together?
Okay, buddy, we hear you. So, what do you want?
What do I want? I want the truth. I want justice. I want...
Welcome back, fellow Guardians, to our chat all about Invincible 306. Chris did the original intro for this episode, but we got so excited about talking about this excellent episode of Invincible that he completely forgot to leave me space to talk about your awesome feedback on episode 305. So I'm going to go straight into it, talk about your feedback on the 5th episode of season 3 of Invincible. Some really good stuff in here, and then we're going to go back to Chris, who will do his straight through intro for episode 6. First up, we got an email in from Coffee and Vodka on his thoughts on episode 5. He says, "Greetings, fellow hero for hire defenders. A nice break from the Guardians and Cecil of it all. Still on theme with Debbie talking about the grey of it all and Mark living it, while semi-unwittingly working along with Titan, who it was great to see again. A nice twisty plot, although I am getting a bit tired of zero stakes with death being more or less a nap. The Rex/Ray interlude was cute, and even Oliver was taking a break from being the planet's most dangerous brat. This could only mean the next episode we've got some major trauma coming our way. So I'm enjoying the calm before the storm. 4 skip stones, dragon dropped dragons, and wasted copies out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka." Well, as you've probably now seen episode 6, yeah, the trauma was in the post after the last episode. Thanks so much for your thoughts, Coffee Vodka. On to Facebook, we have some feedback in from Victor Von Doom, who says, "Am I entertained? Am I not entertained? Yes, I am." Very good, Victor. Dr. Bob Phillips says, "The trolleybus problem seems straightforward in comparison to the challenge of the Titan. Does a crime-free-ish sector of the city deserve its nefarious protector protecting? Should the sins of the father pass to the child? When will bullies learn that wearing kilts will protect them from treasure drop humiliation? And more importantly, where is cute architecture pal, and why is Eve ghosting her?" Very good, Dr. Bob. Yeah, we haven't seen the architecture student that was eyeing up Eve, let's say, back when she was in college. We haven't gone back to college yet, I think, so we may just see her there the next time we're back in college. I'm not sure about kilts. Yes, it would definitely protect them from trouser drop humiliation, but if they're wearing a kilt, strong wind may cause some other type of humiliation for them as well. And yes, the trolleybus problem, the idea of sacrificing the one to save the many, or the many to save the one, or which is the choice? Where do you send your badness to kill one or many? Yeah, that's kind of the choice that Mark avoided, I guess, in the last episode, but it ended off Titan having the decision himself. Great stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob. And finally, John Daniels says, "I don't have podcast-worthy comments to add, but I'm really enjoying this journey. I, like Chris, have read the comics, but I don't remember them as well as he does. There is so much story to offer, and they're doing such an amazing job with the show." Excellent, John. That is a podcast-worthy comment. It's great to hear that you're enjoying it as much as the other comic book reader here, Chris, is. I think they're doing a really good job of making it accessible to people that haven't read the comic books as well. But you got to remember with Chris, he reads them on a regular basis. He kind of will pick it up every 1 or 2 years, and read through a good chunk of the book if he doesn't get the whole thing read. He knows it very well, but he seems really excited to hear what we think about it, the people that haven't read the comic book, what we think about the big twist and turn that's coming around the corner. Having been a fan of Robert Kirkman since The Walking Dead and read issues monthly, I know his style of having a massive twist at the end of an issue or a massive twist at the end of a big arc that you don't expect coming. And I know he took that on board with Invincible as well. So while I haven't read much of the Invincible comics, I can see that he has that style in Invincible as well, where he takes some major twists and turns, and I have no idea what's coming next. I have no idea what's coming in the next 2 episodes to close out this season as well. So it's been a great journey for me as well. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, John. And thanks everybody else for your feedback. I'll send you back over to Chris and me for the beginning of our podcast about season 3, episode 6. All I can say is, I'm sorry.
Welcome back, fellow Guardians, to the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries. And we're talking about season 3, episode 6 of Invincible. All I can say is, I'm sorry. And boy, am I not sorry to have seen this episode. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I am your other host, Derek. Yeah, totally agree with you, Chris. This is probably the best episode that Invincible have done so far.
It is just all the feels, all the action, all the everything.
Yeah, brilliant performances as well. Just really, really top quality for an episode. I know this is another one of the episodes that we'll probably give it. I would give it probably one of the highest ratings if I was rating the episodes. But it's one of those ones that, of course, couldn't have happened if we hadn't had the build up from every episode so far. Really, that's taking a look back at a big moment in the history of Invincible and seeing how it affected somebody else in the world is a great way to tell this story. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like I knew this story was coming at some point from, again, comic book reader myself, non-comic book reader and yourself.
Yeah.
So I knew this was coming, and it's still the emotional weight they put behind this is spectacular.
I think when you bring in like an actor like Aaron Paul to play Paraplex, you know, you really are adding that extra gravitas to it. He's been such a good actor from Breaking Bad through to Black Mirror. He did a brilliant episode of that. You know, he's a great actor who can really bring a performance, and he does it here. Yeah, really good.
And at least we know he's back now. He's been living off his Breaking Bad millions and billions for years. So now we've got him back as Paraplex, you know, maybe he's the next big bad.
Well, he may be.
Maybe. But we're not here to talk about Aaron Paul's career. We're here to talk about Invincible. So, Derek, because I really want to discuss this, can you tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how with the episode details?
Absolutely. Of course, the show is based on the comic series by Robert Kirkman and illustrated by Cory Walker and Ryan Ottley, and the show was developed by Robert Kirkman. This episode was written by Ross Stracke and Simon Racioppa. We've talked about Simon many times before. He's one of the lead producers on the show and one of the developers of the show as well. But Ross was a writer's and recording assistant on season 1 and then a production manager since season 2 on the show, so has always had a part behind the scenes on the show, and now gets the writing credit for this episode. What a great writing credit to have as your first writing credit, right?
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
Like, and again, we will get into it, but you're like, this is the one where, like, you do the your consideration.
Absolutely.
This is the one you put in and go, do you know what? Look, shows what true adult animation can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say we might see Ross working on The Boys or another Prime Video project in the future. As a lot of the people that have been writers have worked on other projects that we've covered in the past as well. So let's keep an eye out on Ross in the future. This episode was directed by Jason Zurek, who directed the season premiere episode, and this is his 3rd episode of Invincible that he's directed as well. But Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Invincible season 3, episode 6? All I can say is, I'm sorry.
Sure, strap in. It's a good one. In Chicago, Scott Duvall pays a visit to his sister Jessica and his niece Gretchen. Scott has some small kinetic powers that Gretchen excitedly plays with before they return to their apartment. While Scott gets a coffee, Omni-Man and Invincible's infamous battle arrives in the town. As the two beings battle each other, thousands of Chicago natives die, including Scott's sister and his niece. Ever since, Scott has been trying to get Invincible to pay for his crimes, but as he was protecting the Earth from an alien invasion, the law can't do anything. Frustrated, Scott gets a job at the GDA, trying to find a way to expand his powers to take on Invincible. He finally finds and steals some equipment that allows him to gather more power each time he is punched. Scott, now naming himself Powerplex, tries to call out Invincible, but as he's busy bowling with his friends, Shapesmith of the Guardians of the Globe drives him away. As the GDA close in on Scott, he has one more opportunity at the memorial to those killed in Chicago. But as Adam Eve realizes Powerplex's powers are driven by being hit, she traps him in her shields, allowing the GDA to take him prisoner. On the way to the prison, Powerplex breaks out and returns home. But as Invincible tracks him down, Scott's power kills his own wife and son. Mark visits Scott in the GDA prison, and all he can do is say he's sorry, but Scott vows his vengeance on Invincible. Meanwhile, Oliver questions whether his father will ever be forgiven. Rudy finally finds a cure for Monster Girl's reversing aging, and Shrinking Ray decides to give up being a superhero and asks Resplode to come with her before they both die.
We kind of compacted everything else from the episode into one paragraph there, didn't we, Chris?
Yeah. It's almost like there was a lot going on in the other one major arc of the story.
I just think that Scott's story and Powerplex's story is so interesting in and of itself. How it's told, how it's acted, what's going on, the I suppose added edge it gives to what's happened to Invincible since his father was on planet. I just think it's such an interesting story, and I loved all the other stuff as well. I thought there was some really interesting character moments for all the rest of the characters, but the focus on Scott and what happened with Mark, I think, is really important. So good job there, Chris.
Thank you. Should we jump into it and discuss the major top points?
Absolutely. Let's talk about our power points for the episode, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, Plex point number 1.
There you go.
Is Mark a villain?
That's the kind of concept that this brings in, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
Again, we've been talking about it for the rest of the season. I don't really believe it. I don't really believe Mark's a villain, of course, but we've been talking about it for the rest of the season so far, that Mark has his opinions, Mark has his rules that he lives by, and there are other people that question how those affect them and how those affect the people of Earth, in the same way that everybody questioned Omni-Man when he went on his rampage, right? So this is bringing you right the way back to that big battle between Mark and Invincible, where thousands of people, we find out, died on the day they had that battle, and Mark has never even considered it once. He never once thought about the victims also being impacted by him fighting his father. He has blamed his dad and forgiven his dad in the time, but he's never really thought about them. No,
and it's the interesting. It brings up the whole thing of collateral damage and casualties for these superheroes.
Yeah. What did that do in the MCU, Chris?
Sokovia Accords.
Exactly. It created the Civil War between Captain America and Iron Man in the MCU, yeah.
I really enjoyed the premise of this, and the premise being the superheroes don't or can't think about the casualties. They can acknowledge the casualties,
yes,
but they can't think and ruminate and kind of get lost in the casualties and the deaths, because they're doing what they feel is what's right to save the world. So it's the trolley problem, if you think of it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's do you save one person at the cost of millions, or do you save millions at the cost of one? Or how precious is life?
Yeah.
And if you've then just solved and saved millions, do you still acknowledge and can you acknowledge and say sorry for the death of that one?
Yeah.
It's that kind of it's still someone's mother, son, wife, daughter,
absolutely,
person.
Exactly. What's the knock-on impact of those ones that you did choose to sacrifice to save the higher number, if that's the decision that you made? Absolutely. What I do really like about how this episode is written, again, all credit to Sam Racioppa and Ross Drake for this, we also see Oliver in his really early mode of becoming a superhero. Mark takes him out to fight against the elephant, fantastically played by John DiMaggio, who plays Bender in Futurama. You'll know him from loads of other stuff as well, but I love that they have that moment in the episode. We have Oliver punching this guy who's clearly not anywhere close to the power of Oliver, and they're telling him, you need to watch out for the people around. You need to make sure that while you're taking out the superhero who is way less powerful than you are, use him as a training dummy, but make sure you don't kill anybody around you. And meanwhile, in the background, we're being told the story of Scott Duvall experiencing the loss of his sister and his niece. He's going through this, trying to make sure that Invincible is paying for the impact that him and his father's battle caused on Chicago. So what a great idea to just have that little story in the background of Oliver being told by Eve and Mark, always watch out around you so you don't cause these kind of problems. So I just think that's a great idea for the episode. Really cool.
Again, it's also that kind of, I'm going to absolutely destroy the phrase, but it's something along the lines of like vengeance is a poison to the owner, not to the victim. Mm-hmm. Because that's the issue here to a degree, which is the vengeance and hate that Paraplex that Scott is holding to, while bright, is destroying him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's eating him up and it becomes single-minded. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a valid conversation about his wife to the point of like, that's that kind of the enablement and the push.
Yeah.
We'll get to it to a degree, but like, you can't fully blame Scott for the ending.
Yeah.
Because she brought her kid there. She tied up the kid too. Yeah. And now they both were consumed by the vengeance.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's more that. I think they're equally responsible here. But the interesting question, and again, the one that we've posed as part of our point number one here, is what responsibility does Invincible have to take in this? What responsibility did the GDA have to take in this? What responsibility did the law system of the US have to take in this? What I love how this, and why it hits so hard, the storyline that we've got here, what I love about it is Scott does try to pursue every single avenue he possibly can to try and get Invincible to take some kind of responsibility. He wants him to be in the court and answer questions from the public. He wants him to have some kind of responsibility for this, and he's being told in every single angle he's going for, he's being told there's nothing you can do here. He talks to the DA, and the DA says to him, no, hang on, he protected us from an alien invasion. Our laws don't cover us here. And Scott, interestingly, knows that Omni-Man was Invincible's dad. He's going, you're talking about it as it's an alien invasion, just a way to protect you legally. But this is the guy's father that had this fight. He was battling with him. And because the two of them had this fight and he stayed on Earth here, he should be held responsible for all of these deaths. Who is responsible otherwise, you know? That's a really interesting idea, really interesting concept. And he follows that through for what seems like months and up to years now. Unfortunately, the way Invincible works, I don't know the timeline from when that battle happened in Chicago to where we are now, because Mark's left planet for a couple of months and come back. There's been time jumps as well.
We're nearly at like 18 months to 2 years nearly.
I was thinking 3 in my head. I don't know why I was thinking 3 years, but Oliver's obviously growing as well a bit. And that's hard to tell because he grows faster than most people, but
let's say less than 3, more than 1. Like, we're somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that range. Yes, something like that. Because I know, obviously, you could probably tell by William, who's in college. He's not finished college already, and Amber hasn't finished college. So I guess we've only gone about a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is that Scott's been pursuing every avenue he can, and then decides to join the GDA to try and find some other ways to attack Invincible or find Invincible. So, you see him learning, about what's been going on. I love that he's just the grumpy guy in work to the people around him in the GDA. Oh, here's Scott again with his moaning. But it starts to get in on them as well. Some of the other members of the GDA, they're starting to go, yeah, maybe he shouldn't be allowed to walk into the Pentagon without any kind of repercussions whatsoever, Love that discussion over lunch, it's, but he kind of should be, because what happens if we turn Mark away or arrest him? He's the only protection Earth has if there's another alien invasion. So he is the nuclear weapon almost. That is the deterrent from other attacks from anywhere outside of Earth to the planet, right? So is he allowed to get away with everything? You know, there's some really interesting questions that are explored. Love it.
I love it. And it continues to raise more questions as you think deeper, which is just a couple of episodes ago, we're pretty sure that a large number of prisoners died. And you're like, okay, well, they died, and well, like, what happens there? Like, if not all of them were mass murderers, there's going to be some white collar guys in there. Yeah. Someone who didn't pay a parking ticket, and they could be dead.
I presume it's a little bit of a bigger prison than that.
Yes, but you understand.
That just haven't paid parking tickets. At least I hope not. Yeah. It's not a holding cell. Yeah.
But it starts to raise these questions. And again, every fight. And it does, as you say, that interesting kind of juxtaposition where we see them trying to teach Oliver about to know your surroundings and stuff. Yeah. Because they have learned the hard way. They've learned the interesting. I think of Man of Steel.
Yeah. I wonder though, is that the point? They know the right way to act, I would say, but they've never learnt it. And this is, I think, what Scott's problem is. They know they shouldn't kill anybody. They know they shouldn't kill humans, let's say from Mark's point of view, but they have over and over again. It's happened accidentally. And they don't care about it enough is Scott's point. I love that moment when he's standing up in front of them at the memorial service where there's 2,000 names there and Mark's looking at the wall going, oh, isn't it awful that all these people died? But when Scott stands up, he starts calling out some of the names of the dead. Just, even just that reinforcement of 5 or 6 names, including his sister and his niece that he calls out. But even just that reinforcement of calling out a few names out loud makes it even more real for Mark. It's not just a wall of letters that are up there where he goes, oh, isn't it awful? It's calling it out. These were real people that had real families like me. So it's that punishment in a way. It's just that little extra that Mark has to go through after some people have died in the past when he's tried to save the world. And hasn't had to answer for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like this as a storyline in he couldn't do his job.
Yeah.
If he had to think about every single one of those. I see. I'm of that thing. Like, you had that point when you are thinking of the trolley problem, when you're thinking of that, I need to save the city versus a block, a building. Let's say a building versus the city.
Yeah.
Okay, well then you have to think of the city. Like, you have to think of the many and not just the few. If you then start going, well, I can't, you start pulling your punches because you're worried about the collateral damage, then, like, you can do your best, like, try and take the fights out of the city into the desert, into those unpopulated areas. But you can't always, in the immortal words of Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. There will always be some form of collateral damage. It is baked into life.
Yeah. But I guess that's why the trolley problem is the trolley problem, because some people have different opinions about it. It's always going to be different. Do you agree with the armed forces going into a foreign country and hundreds of thousands of people dying to save a couple of million people? That is the choice that the armed forces have to make. Luckily, I don't have to make those decisions. I might make very different decisions, We in Ireland come from a neutral nation, so we don't have an army that goes into countries and has to make the decisions about who lives and who dies. This is the question over a superhero as opposed to a law enforcement officer who isn't supposed to kill anybody at all in the line of duty. Occasionally, some people die. That's the collateral damage. But if they killed 100 people while trying to catch one criminal, there are punishments for that.
Their name is John McClane.
Yeah, but there are punishments for that. They are punished for that. They're not allowed to do it. And in this case, if you think about the numbers, Mark was fighting his one father, and thousands of people died in Chicago, and some of those thousands of people were connected to Scott Duvall. His sister and his niece died because of it. But I suppose that to get back to the progress of the episode, what I love about the build up from Scott Duvall to Powerplex. We see really early on that he has these kinetic powers almost, where he gets a punch and it turns into energy, and it's almost like a like for like. It's almost like the energy reverses into the same power as is delivered from Scott. And then he develops himself so that someone like Invincible, who uses his fists and punches and kicks, that power will drive him to become more powerful. So that's a really cool idea, that he is literally like in the MCU, he's the literal opposite villain of Invincible, or that's what he wants to build himself up into. Yeah.
And kind of talking about the movies, like that, the moment where he jumps off that building is so reminiscent of the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where it's the creation and the origin. It's slightly different because Miles had to let go and we get an amazing drop of a needle. Here, slightly different. Yeah. You just get him splatting on the ground, and it is that power surge.
Exactly.
It is interesting when he power surges, it does increase his anger levels and the vengeance is fueled almost by the power.
Yeah.
Because we see earlier on in the episode when he's with his wife, he nearly lashes out at her and scares the child. And then it's that instantaneous, I've just shouted in front of my child and trying to flip back.
That's true. Yeah. Is it something connected to the power that he has that as the power increases, that increases his anger as well? Yeah. That's really, really good point. But I do like that because he's created these powers, or he's expanding his powers specifically to challenge Invincible, he tries to draw out Invincible and he fails. I love the first failure is him going on TV effectively trying to call out Invincible, and Invincible effectively just turns the TV off because he's out bowling with his mates, and he's like, I no longer work for the GDA. They can't call me out. I don't care if if another villain is out calling for Invincible to come out and fight them. I'm here with my mates having a game of bowling for William's birthday, and just turns off the TV.
but even more than that, it was the I deserve a night off too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, that's an interesting point. But outside of even I just out with my mates, it's if you are the Superman of your universe, everyone's going to try and take out the Superman. So your immediate thing is, okay, you're below me. You're not global scale annihilation. Yeah. So like the Avengers don't come down, don't stop bank robbers. They're not your friendly neighborhood Avengers.
Yeah.
They are at a global scale.
Absolutely.
That's why you have your little Spider-Man initially. To help with your friendly neighborhood bank robbers.
But it just has been that running joke throughout the previous two seasons because Cecil has had Mark's leash almost.
Yes.
Even the nights that he's tried to take off and turned off his earpiece, Cecil has found a way to get Mark back if he needs him to come back. Here, Mark is actually the one that's needed and just ignores it, turns off the TV, and nobody gets in contact with him. So Shapesmith is sent down to stop him. I really like this scene. I really like Shapesmith as a character. I love the performance that we're getting out of him. He's the most unusual person because he calls out things exactly as he sees them, and as an alien he sees them very different to how most people see them. I love the way that he tries to calm Powerplex down. I get this emotion. Sometimes we want things and we can't get them, but that's something we just have to accept in our lives. And he thinks that's going to calm Powerplex down, but eventually it breaks down into Shapesmith punching him until Powerplex gets powerful enough to knock out Shapesmith. So I thought that was a really good use of Shapesmith. He also has the best line in the episode when people don't recognize who he is. We hear Shapesmith going, "Oh, you know me. I'm a member of the Guardians of the Globe. Shapesmith. I'm the one that transforms my body into clothes, which everyone thinks is fine, even though I'm totally naked." Fantastic. Love him.
I love that character because it is that he is your plastic man from the Justice League. That kind of, I turn myself into a ball, and you're like, oh my God, you are like, that is just all one. It's John Jones. John Jones is always naked.
Exactly.
The Martian Manhunter.
But he just has that innocence about him that I really like. I think he's great fun, a great fun character.
So moving on to Chicago, to the memorial, and Adam Eve being Adam Eve, smart. and sassy as she is, she figures out he is a kinetic battery, if you will. So I did enjoy this, and it was a interesting way that she does stop Mark, because again, she's like, I got this, don't worry.
Yeah.
You just kind of hold off because it's just going to make things worse.
Yeah.
And is able to take him down pretty easy.
Yeah, she quickly works out that she doesn't have to punch him. She can use her powers to stop him by just surrounding him in her shield. So I think that's really cool. And this is the part that reminded me of The Incredibles, where you have a husband and wife who are together and they use their powers together to take down villains. Here we have Atom Eve and Mark going, well, maybe, Mark, your power of punching people repeatedly in the face, maybe this won't work right now. Maybe I need to use my power, which is blocking this person from fighting back. Maybe that works in this situation. So you can almost see that now they're the team up heroes. They're starting to work together much more than they have in the past. That's cool. I really like that. So again, developing this idea of this new superhero team, both in their love life and in their superhero life, I guess. Yeah, which is kind of cool.
The biggest cool bit for me was seeing them power blocks escaping, because figuring out that because that initial jostle on the prison truck that knocks his head, and you hear that zzz, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I was expecting a bit more blood, because he is smacking his head against that wall. But it is very cool to see how that works.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing that you wonder about his powers, because we do get a good explanation of them as the show goes on. We did see him falling off a building, landing on the ground, and absorbing the power of that landing into himself. He didn't pancake. He didn't die from that fall. So I guess that's it. I guess he is invulnerable in some way when he takes on that power and is able to broadcast it out of himself or fire it out of himself. So I guess it's something like that. He is much more powerful. God, we've already seen it once this season with Dr. Seismic. Now his role expanded from season 1 into now. So where's Powerplex going to be when we see him again sometime in the future?
1,000 years from now, he is a human battery. Yeah,
absolutely. He's powering the Earth, or taking on all of the Earth's power to finally get back at Invincible. But yes, you're right. He does break out, goes back to his wife, and then we have that kind of confrontation almost, where he feels like he should be giving up here. One of the things we didn't really mention is that because of him working for the GDA, he's on that kind of clock. He knows the GDA are going to find out that it's him. He knows that they're going to be on his trail and will be able to find him at some point. So he doesn't want to continue with this battle on Invincible. He feels they're going to be around the house in a couple of days' time, basically. We need to get out of here. We need to hide. And he gets that push from his wife, who is also, I guess, as dedicated as Scott Duvall is to making Invincible pay. And she comes up with the idea of using her and their son as hostages to draw Invincible out, because everything Scott's done hasn't drawn Invincible out. They've never had a face-to-face, even after these, what are we saying, 1.5 years, 2 years? They've never had a face-to-face. He's never been able to face Invincible for this. But that goes pretty badly too.
It does. Yes, it goes very badly.
Yeah. Wow. Like, it's very rare that I'll look away from an animated show, on what's on screen. But when Scott's power explodes out of himself and his wife and son burn up in the inferno that's created, that's damaging to look at on screen, for too long. And
the flaking. Flaking of the you see. Again, I knew this was coming.
Right.
I knew the story. Slightly different setup, but not setup. Not sorry. I mean, locations and things like that. But I knew what the end was going to be. And as someone who has a newly formed powerplex of my own, around the same age as the son, I was like, oh no, this is gonna, and just hearing the sounds and the cry, like just the silence and the look, I was like, oh, this is a tough one to watch, even in animated.
It felt like something from Hiroshima. It felt like, a nuclear bomb had gone off and they were just dusted in that moment. But again, with an adult animated show like this, showing it is sometimes really important to be able to show that. Last season, we had the thing of Mark killing Angstrom Levy and it not being shown on screen, the violence of what he did not being shown on screen. But I think here the choice of showing what happened to Scott's wife and child is really important to see. It underlines how bad things go.
Yeah, for me, it's the train scene. And let me follow this from season 1, which is seeing someone being pushed through a train. It's fine. Because it's just it is just what it is. It is superhero cliche. You're going to throw them through a building or something. But you forget when you put an immovable object in front of something, things go splat. Yeah. So getting to see from Mark's perspective, even as things were rushed through and people are just splatting into him, and he's like, "Oh my god!" Like you're that violence. Seeing that is something different, and it's not violence for violence sakes. It is the violence and showing gore. Because again, you don't need gore to bring emotion. Yeah, but you can bring gore to underscore an element. So here, seeing the flaking and the crispiness of the wife and son underscores what happens. Yeah. And why it is what it is, and why the vengeance element is the poison chalice that eats again at you, but not thing. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the train moment, because we did see Scott look at that exact moment. We saw him watch Mark being pushed through a train full of people by his father, where it's punishing for Mark. From Mark's perspective, his father is making him kill people and watching people break all over him. From Scott's perspective, when he's watching that video, he's watching people die and Mark not paying any attention to it. Almost. That's kind of the thing. So when we get the final moment where Mark comes to visit him and goes, "I will always remember your sister. I will always remember your niece's name. I'm sorry you've lost your wife and son, but the only thing I can say is I'm sorry." And then tries to walk away, but Scott goes, "What did you think was going to happen here? You'd say you're sorry and everything's going to be okay. I will get out of here and I will make you pay for what you've done." It's such a great moment. This isn't a standalone story, I think, for the show. Again, I haven't read ahead. I don't know how this is going to go in the future, but we have got Powerplex here, who has still got that vendetta in his heart. He may face Invincible again in the future at some point.
Yeah, and again, I know what happens, right. And
you're not going to tell us.
Not going to tell you at all. There's not much more. I suppose for me, it's the delivery. I think before we move on, for me, the delivery. We talked very quickly about why you bring in someone like Aaron Paul, if Aaron Paul comes in and says, "I will give me a role." That's why you give one of these ones to him. Right. Because the joking piece where he's in his suit and doing the monologue, and then he's like, "What did you think?" Is that like he's practicing? He can pull off something like that. Yeah. But then the gravitas of that moment where he's just killed his wife and child, and he understands that. And he's soft-spoken, like, not more than 3 minutes before that with his wife. Yeah. Like, you need someone who has that range, and he delivers hard.
Absolutely. He's really, really good. And it's not to take away from Kate Mara's performance as his wife. No. Exactly as you said, the way that she is as convinced as he is on what they need to do to Invincible is fantastic. You know, you need another actor to be brought into this role to show the two of them and what this has done to their lives. And I think it's really good. Well done, showrunners and casting directors for this episode. Yeah, I think Invincible has done such a great job about the characters that it's brought on board, the actors that it's brought on board for their characters. And there's also quite a bit of other stuff that goes out of the episode, but I think we were right to focus on that because that is one of the best things the show has done so far.
But let's jump into then the other points where we'll call these point 2, the overall relationship developments.
Yeah, there's hardly anything else happens.
No. So 2 bits for me that I really want. One is the conversation between Shrinking Ray and Rexplode. So Shrinking Ray decides she's going to leave whatever the newly formed team that they are on. They're not going to be the team anymore, but whatever they decide to come up there, she's no longer going to do that. She's going to leave because she wants to be normal again.
Yeah, I love that moment where she just goes, but you realize that it's taken me months to recover from the last time. You almost died. You got shot in the head and lost a hand. Maybe we just step back and leave it to other people, because what are we doing? Are we just going to hang around until the next time that happens to us and we die? You know, like, what a great rationalization that she has. And there really should be no argument from Rex there.
No, but there is.
There is.
And that's the one I love. He is not anything else but Rexplode.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a front, that's who he is. He is a hero. And you kind of understand it once you start to understand more about his origin and who he is. She did have a life before, but not much. She was brought up in the Midwest and trained from a young age to be a hero. So she kind of has an understanding what should be, there is more to life.
Mm-hmm.
Rex doesn't.
Yeah.
But he's starting to understand that there is more to people. Because you see that he's starting to really kind of connect with Shrinking Ray.
Yeah.
And he's no longer, he's not the old Rex as they jokingly refer to it.
Yeah.
But it's a nice change. It's nice to see him evolve and see the character evolve, and shares a tender kiss at the end.
Exactly. But, you know, again, just learning those little bits about Rex's life, the fact that he was taken from his parents or sold by his parents to the government and then experimented on, and everything was purged. He doesn't know anything about his life beforehand. These are things we haven't learned before. And just like Atom Eve and her story, we said it last season that we'd love to see a Rexplode standalone one-off movie. I'm really hopeful now. After seeing him this season, he's even better character for me this season than he was last season. I'm really enjoying the little bits of Rexplode that we're getting. But with so much going on with Mark and him as being the central character, and as we said, you know, we've talked about him for almost half of the episode, or more than half of the episode, just that main point. I think we're going to need a couple of spin-off movies of some of the other characters here, because they're falling into the background a bit, and they have got really interesting stories to tell as well.
Oh, some of the best, because that is then another one which I absolutely love is Rudy and Monster Girl. Mm-hmm. Robot and Monster Girl.
Yeah.
Him showing his love and adoration for Monster Girl he did promise he would cure her, reverse or find the solution to the problem that is her aging. And she goes, "You just see me as a problem that you need to fix."
Exactly.
That was one of the lines from prior.
Yeah.
And he has, but he does do this there is a caveat that he puts in at the beginning as he's giving her the belt, which is, I don't expect anything from this. I just wanted to help you.
Exactly. He's so tender. Like he's so kind about it. And I think that's what we saw between the two characters last season is just, she just doesn't want to be seen as a problem to fix. She wants to be seen as everything else other than that. But if he can fix it, great, you know?
Yeah.
But here he is fixing it and almost apologetic, going, I hope this is okay. If this doesn't work and you don't want to look at it, we'll never speak of it again. But I think I've solved the problem. And you see her face going, what? You mean you've actually solved this massive thing? You know, so she is really happy that he's done it, and he has. He stopped her from de-aging. She will now, hopefully, as long as she wears the belt, when she's changing, she will now not de-age. She'll not get younger and younger and younger. So
exactly,
that's a massive thing for her life. I guess we didn't see much of the early years, but I guess she was a lot older than whatever she is now.
Oh, she's in her 30s, I think.
Yeah, so that's a big change for her. She can now grow up normally.
Yeah. I love this. This is for me. And again, they explain even very quickly, the drone robot, does explain that every time she does shift back, there's an issue with the curse, and it just knocks off a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's
for
so
a day
cool.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah.
I must say, one other thing I do want to mention, I really do like having both the voice of Robot and Zachary Quinto, and also the voice of Rudy. They're the two different voices on screen at the same time. I think that's quite cool.
No, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What about you? Any other relationship developments that you want to bring up?
I just think it's fun that we had the moment that you'd have in every traditional rom-com where William goes out for his birthday party, goes bowling to show all the superheroes how amazing he is at bowling, which I do love. But the fact that he also invites Mark's ex, Amber, and Amber comes along with her date, her new boyfriend, Kyle. Just because you have to have it. Mark broke up with the love of his life, which at the time he thought was Amber, and here he is stepping out with Eve. And the two of them look at each other and go, you know what? I'm happy for you. I'm happy you found someone that suits you better, because it's not always about, I find you really attractive and therefore we should spend the rest of our lives together. It's also sometimes maybe you're not the right person right now for me in my situation. Yeah. So there was a little grown up moment there between the two of them where they realized, actually, I'm just happy that you found the right person for you. And also a great joke about the fact that her new boyfriend, Kyle, also absolutely loves Sayad's dog, because Amber has a type.
Yep. That's the bit I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, oh, I guess I have a type. Well, so does Eve.
Exactly. And speaking of the humans in the world of Invincible, the other one I also liked is Paul and Debbie. So the two of them having, again, all the superheroes around them for dinner, Paul cooking dinner for them all, and trying to have conversations with them that would make sense in every other situation. But when you're talking to superheroes, it's not really the same. I like that he's trying his best, but is still questioning himself. Where do I belong in a world where the people across the table from me are going out and literally saving lives, or they could punch a hole through a wall or destroy an entire city, and I'm selling houses on the market? Where do I fit there? And Debbie just kind of saying to him, well, I have to live like that as well. We have to show them that our lives may not have the same meaning as theirs, but our lives do have meaning.
Yeah.
And I just really like that conversation because it grounds Debbie as well. Yeah, yes. She may be Mark's mom. She may have to be Oliver's mom as well, but she's also a meaningful person in her own right as well. So I like that she's able to have that conversation and develop that relationship with Paul too.
Yeah, she has a foot in both worlds, I suppose, is the best way.
Exactly.
I like this, but it's that awkward stepfather vibe. Mm-hmm. It's the one that got me go, oh, it's so cringy, but it's just like, it's
so
funny.
Difficult, yeah.
It was just like, oh, yeah, tough.
I do feel sorry for it, and the fact that Oliver laughs at his anecdote that he tries to compare being the one with the best reputation in town, and how he got all of his business as a realtor, to Mark being a person with a bad reputation as a superhero. But again, I like Paul's reaction to it when he goes out to the kitchen and is talking to her, going, I knew the minute the words came out of my mouth, I shouldn't have said that. So I'm kind of liking Paul at the moment. Yeah,
for now. To see how long he sticks around.
Exactly. So we kind of stuffed all of the relationship stuff into one point, and we stuffed the other major storyline into another point. But I just wanted to give our last point over to the post-credit scene, because it is, I think, a pretty massive moment at the end of the episode. We thought our big bad from season 2, Angstrom Levy, was gone and done, and that we wouldn't see him again. And here he is in the post-credit scene. He's the one that's been throwing up the orbs or the balls, watching Mark and family, for the last couple of weeks. But here he is. Is it the same Angstrom Levy or not? We don't know. I don't know. I'll say that. But he also has 15 different versions of Mark from different dimensions surrounding him.
So cool, isn't it?
It's so interesting.
So cool. I just love it. We talked about all the different Mauler twins that Angstrom pulled in prior, and all these different Marks. Is just so cool, and the different outfits they wear, different styles. You're like, oh,
really cool ones in there. Yeah, I could see some looking just like Nolan. He's got the moustache. He's got the hair looking just like his dad. That's really interesting. Also, we see some like Baron Nemo from Marvel Comics, where he has the cloth over his face. I guess like Cobra as well from G.I. Joe. So there's some really interesting versions. But who are these 15 Marks? We know Angstrom Levy was going through different dimensions, killing some of them off. So are these the ones he didn't kill off? And this is his army that he'll use to take on our version of Mark and his family.
What's the best way to kill a Mark? With your own Mark.
Of other Marks, yeah.
Hey, we are getting a Mark v. Mark, a Marky Mark, if you will.
Or Mark and the Funky Bunch, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, well done. Oh, well done.
I'm that old that I remember his first single, Chris.
Damn, that's a good one. I loved how they did do the reveal, and the hand back. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on the subject, but I'm just like, it's fun to see how they incorporate these storylines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Always good.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think they're doing such a great job on is expanding the rest of the characters as well. All the characters that are in the background in the comic books are getting much more time on screen and much more storylines. And at times they're written so well, I want to see even more of them. as I said, that's kind of my final thoughts on this episode. There's such a great focus in here on Paraplex and the interplay with Mark and what happened because of the battle with Mark and his dad. That is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. But also, there's so many other great characters there that I'd love to see more of as the show goes on. So, if Mark disappears from the show for an entire season, there's still going to be enough storylines from all the other characters to keep me interested and keep me invested. And that's a great thing to say about this show. Really enjoying it. And only 2 episodes left this season now. So I'm presuming we're going to have the return of Alan the Alien, potentially, with Nolan in tow. We're going to see them, hopefully, as the season goes on. We're obviously going to see Angstrom Levy at some point for the rest of the season. And then what the hell's going on with Cecil and the Guardians of the Globe? They'll probably appear as well. So lots to cover in the last 2 episodes.
They, at one point, did release a side comic on the Guardians of the Globe. And I loved it. Because again, that's how they had, when you introduce some characters, we talked about it in our kind of previous episodes too. Yeah. When you introduce these characters that people fall in love with, they want to know more. So there's been like, I have all this other lore in my head and I'm like, this isn't in this comic. And I'm like, it's one of the, it's in one of the other ones. I'm like, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But absolutely looking forward to these final 2 episodes. I do have one note for this episode. Yeah. Which is, I love the car scene. The flying car scene of how they get to Chicago.
Yes. That was really good. Yes.
It's just like, well, no, we're going to drive. And then Paul is like, and you're like, yeah, you would be. But then you see Oliver like Oliver jumping out and flying, and he's like, no, get in the car.
Just for me, get in the car so I don't throw up. That was really cute, wasn't it? Really like that. I love that that's the superhero family's version of driving to Chicago. Is you're sitting in the car and we're carrying you there on our backs as we fly there. Yeah.
It was nice. It's such a good, and because we've talked about Mark can fly pretty fast, but like everyone else's hair would get destroyed.
Absolutely. Or necks get broken. Yeah.
So it's that kind of like, just fly him in a car. Be fine.
Exactly. Good stuff. Anything else on the episode, Chris, you want to talk about?
Nothing else from my side.
Fantastic. Well, that leaves it to our wonderful fellow Guardians. We want to hear from you about your thoughts on this episode and all the rest of the episodes. Email us into feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts. And we also have spoiler posts up for each of the episodes over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We have got so much stuff that we're covering on the podcast here. We just covered Captain America Brave New World last week. Go see that in the cinema and then go and listen to our thoughts over at tvpodcastindustries.com. And next week we will be back for the penultimate episode of Invincible season 3 episode 7. Chris and myself will be covering that one.
It's gonna be good.
Can't wait.
Well, with all that being said and done, ladies, gentlemen, NBs, and most importantly fellow Guardians, thank you for joining us. We will be back, but remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep being invincible.
Bye.